Hi everybody, my name is Elle and I'm an AmeriCorps member with Guidestone, Colorado. I'm here in the Salida area, and today we are going to be talking about soil, and we are going to specifically make a really delicious dessert soil profile, and we're going to be talking about all the different horizons. This is a video that can be watched by anybody, parent, child, but the content inside is very well suited for the middle school age level, so keep that in mind while you're watching. So before we begin, I wanted to talk a little bit about an experiment that we did 2 weeks ago when we talked about seeds. And so if you haven't seen that video, you should definitely go look at it because it was really fun, it was really interesting. But we basically had an experiment where we were planting pumpkin, corn, and calendula and seeing what would sprout first in terms of eggshells, egg cartons, and a tea bag. And so I have the results here with you today. And so if you see over here, this is our these are our tea bags, our eggshells, and just a regular egg carton, of course. And our eggshells have done the best, and this is primarily due to calcium being in those eggshells. Plants love calcium, some more than others, and our pumpkins were the first to sprout, and then the corn, and then we got one little baby calendula popping out right here. And then over here on this side, our pumpkins happening, our corn and calendula hasn't happened, and sadly our tea bags, none of them have popped out yet. And that I personally think that might be due to they lost their water content more quicker than these other sections. And so when going through the germination process, you just want to make sure that you keep things wet while they're germinating. And so that might be a loss for us, but we learn from our mistakes, right? So to begin with our experiment, or our little fun dessert making process, you're going to need a clear cup. I'm using a compostable one, but anyone will do. You're going to need a spoon. You're going to need something that's yummy and chocolatey. And so I use Butterfingers because I love Butterfingers and they kind of look like rocks. We're going to use some Oreos today. And then I have some animal crackers and some little wormies that are going to be, used later. We have some pudding here today, and I'm going to keep that closed until it's ready to be used in terms of, flies. And then lastly, I have some shredded coconut right here. And I actually dipped some mint chocolate chip to make it a little bit more green color, but also to make it delicious. And so let's get started. So with your cup, we're going to start from the bottom up when talking about, our soil horizons. And so each horizon kind of influences each other. And so to begin, I'm going to use just a regular Oreo cookie. And this is going to signify our horizon, or our bedrock. And so this is unbroken down rock. And so it's tough, it's hard. Some rocks have layers to them. And I kind of like to think of it as an unfertilized, unopened egg. And so it's got minerals, nutrients, but it hasn't been fertilized yet and it hasn't been cracked open. And so that's what I like to think of it as. So our next section is our sea horizon, or this is also called our parent material. And so I'm using Butterfingers for this. As you can see, I kind of already broke them down right here. And make sure you're not doing this in a hot area, because as you can see, they're already getting melted. Delicious, but messy. And so we're just going to go ahead and put these in. And where do parents like to sleep? On a bed! Ah! I'm good. I'm funny. So yeah, you can see that the pieces are really large, and that's exactly what is a signifying characteristic of this section. And so our next portion of our beautiful soil profile is basically our pudding. And so I'm going to just plop a few pieces on. This is also called the bee horizon, or the subsoil. You can get pudding, either you can make it from a box, which is what I did, or you can get it from like a any kind of, oh, this looks so good. or you can get it from one of those little containers if that's all you got laying around. Oh yeah, look how delicious that is. The reason why we use pudding to signify this layer is because it is a little bit lighter in color than the next layer that's coming up, and that's because there's not a lot of organic material in this section. Basically, this is the subsoil is a great place that roots like to just spread out and stretch, and they're like, yeah, I'm free of all these hard things that I've been going through my whole life. And so this is a good relationship for the rock as well, because it helps create future soil. So as the roots reach down under, they take nutrients and start breaking down the rock even more. And that leads to our next section, which is our topsoil. I really love the topsoil because this is where bacteria and fungi go crazy. And so I'm going to use a broken up Oreos, and how I did this is I just basically use my spoon and I just this is a fun thing for anybody to do, but especially if you're a young person, you gotta get like some energy out of you. This is exactly what you want to do. So we're gonna add our horizon, or our topsoil, on here. So as you see, this dark material is where this some organic material that's been broken down has been found. And so there we go. And so this section, I just wanted to mention, can be lost very quickly due to a few different processes. This section and the section above it can be lost very quickly. So there's a few things that humans and nature does to basically remove nutrients. And so the few examples that I have are, for example, deforestation and overgrazing. So when you kill plant material, basically plants are what are helping create the structures of our topsoil, and so it really holds it in place because it is pretty loose. And there's also other examples too, which is agrochemicals. Natural disasters can come and just sweep those out, and then ag practices. So things like tilling is really harmful to soil because the fungi that's in this section, they basically spread their little tentacles all over, and they, you know, allow other plants to talk to each other, which is really fun. But they also allow structure and nutrient sharing to happen. And when a tiller comes in, it basically messes it all up, and it takes quite a while for that soil to come back to normal health again. And so that's just something you want to be thinking about when you're doing your garden practices. And so our next section is our organic material, or the O horizon. And so I'm using some yummy coconut, crushed coconut, and I put some melted mint chocolate chip ice cream in there to basically color it green, because that's what's going on here. This is normally green in color, but it could be like bananas, it could be plants, animals, things like that. And so, getting a little windy. And so when talking about this this section, this is a really fun place because it is where we have a lot of influence. And when soil gets broken down to the point, I mean, when organic material gets broken down to the point with the help of decomposers, basically it looks just like soil, but it's called humus, not hummus. And so that's just like an important distinction between compost, which is the gardener's practice of also fertilizing the soil in terms of organic material and adding that on top. And that's one way that we can help the structure of our soil to get better. And so speaking of structure, we're going to put this baby to the side for a second, and I'm going to talk about a little bit about other than nutrients and organic material, what is your soil actually? And so we have here a mason jar. and we filled it up with approximately like 1/3 to a half, you know, of soil, and then you put some water in there, and then you shake it up, and then you just let it sit for like a day or so. You'll probably start seeing it settle out within like an hour or two, but a day you can really see the difference of these sections. So soil is made of 3 different basically particles of rock. And so you got our sand right here, then you got our soil, and then this like kind of marshy-ish area is our silt, and kind of like the layer on the top too. And then our organic material usually rises to the top, which is really fun. And so the difference between all of these, because these are all essential when talking about our soil health, sand is really good for allowing a plant to breathe, but and allowing a plant to not get suffocated by water, because you don't want to do that to your plants. But it can't really hold nutrients very well, and they just get washed right through. And then our next section is the clay, where it's definitely like the opposite of sand. It's particle size. If this is sand, clay is like a period right in the middle, and it's kind of like the size of the sun to the earth. And that might not be exactly correct, but it's just kind of how I visualize it. And so this section holds nutrients so well, but it also can hold it so well that the plants have a hard time getting those nutrients. And then the next section is silt, and this is like the sweet spot, and it's like kind of in the middle of the sand and the clay, and so it's approximately like this size compared to like sand, silt, and clay. And so this section really allows your plant to breathe and get nutrients, and all of these sections working together really allow for your soil to be healthy. And depending on what you're growing, you may need more of one than the other, and you should always do a soil test before you just start planting. Well, you shouldn't always, but it's a good gardening practice. So that's what we're gonna put that away real quick. That's really fun and awesome. And so going back to this material, our soil profile is really fun and awesome, and I like to think of it almost as like tree rings, because it is like soil growing, and it takes approximately 500 to thousands of years for soil to become mature soil. And so you gotta kind of remember that when talking about ag practices again. But I thought it would be cool to name our soil profile. And so I'm gonna name it Clorped. And the reason why is because that stands for a few things that create this soil to be how it is today. And so CL stands for climate, O stands for organisms, and then R stands for relief. It's the same as like landscape or topography. So, you know, is it hilly, is it flat, things like that. P stands for parent material, what kind of rocks are inside of it, and T stands for time. And so, you know, what kind of animals are pooping on here, and what kind of animals are dying, and what kind of rock are we working with, and what kind of weathering and climate. And climate can include physical weathering and chemical weathering, you know, through oxidation of water or things like that. And all of these processes work together to create our beautiful soil profile. And this can be seen everywhere, but not all soil profiles are the same. And this, again, is due to the earth being so magnificently different in different areas. And so there can be complete horizons missing. And so that's definitely something you want to think about when working with soil. Talking about the organic processes in general. In 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about compost and how you can make compost and how you can bring your soil back to a healthy, thriving state. And so if you are interested in seeing that, we will be talking about that at approximately 10 in the morning next Tuesday, in 2 Tuesdays. And so I hope that you join us. I hope that you like and share this video and comment all your delicious pictures or any tidbits that you want to share or add. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a beautiful Tuesday.